Hello, my name is Garrett. I am doing the series just to document my journey as I try to overcome addictive behavior and kind of build myself into the person I want to be, recover from kind of what I consider a pretty rock bottom period in my life. For anyone who has not seen any of these videos, the week one video has a pretty detailed recap of like the 5 year regression. I'll give a very brief description. Essentially, I started developing a porn addiction when I was 13. I'm 25 now. And that addiction kind of escalated into this overarching conglomeration of just addictive, instantly gratifying behaviors. And I became someone who really just pursued pleasure over anything else. Weed and porn were the primary things that I would spiral with and go through just periods of destruction. And eventually, after about 8 years of escalation with porn, I escalated into compulsively visiting escorts, both trans and female or cis female, which was terrifying to me, very depressing. I have a very religious background, so it was pretty shameful on a subconscious level. And I was fairly suicidal for about a year when I was spiraling pretty hard with escorts. That was a couple of years ago when I was at my lowest. I've progressed a lot since then, but by no means am I where I want to be, and I am a lot closer to that than I realized a couple months ago. So, to go over the last 2 weeks, I would say they've been really good when I am trying to look at it relative to the last 2 months of my life. The last 2 months have been pretty terrible. And I would say I was fully spiraling and kind of collapsing into horrendous mental health and self-hatred again. And so, numbers wise, they're not great. They're not what I ideally would want them to be, but they definitely are better than they've been the last 2 months. I think this week is kind of where I left off. Again, not great. I wasn't really working very much. Didn't make much money because of it. My positive habits were better than they'd been because for a while they had just were more or less non-existent, but they still weren't great. I mean, it was about 50%. And then urges overcome and hours of porn consumed was one of three. One of three urges overcome. A little over 1.5 hours of porn consumed that week, which is good relative to the rest of the month. Because at the start of the month, when I was really starting to spiral, it was 8 hours, 13 hours. Yeah, which honestly does not sound as bad as I realized. But I mean, earlier in this month, it was getting really bad too, where there were some weeks where it was 10 hours by itself. Given the goal for the month was 4 that month. This was before I'd relapsed. I'd abstained from porn for almost 3 months at that point, so I was getting a lot more confident. But the goals for the month overall were still pretty bad. I mean, this is horrible. The amount of red here in my percentages is very telling. Didn't work a single full day that I planned to. Worked 26% of the hours I would have liked to. Revenue was horrible. I mean, it was in almost perfect alignment with the hours worked, which makes sense. Expenses were really high, so that's a perfect combo. Low revenue, high expenses. Blew through a lot of money. With my positive habits, they were pretty terrible compared to the last 3 or 4 months. Most of them under 50%. And then urges overcome being 11% is kind of painful to me, given for 3 months it had been at 100%. Hours of porn consumed, 550% is pretty terrible. 33 hours is a lot. That is ridiculous. It's hard for me not to kind of judge that and start to feel angry and frustrated with myself when I actually look at the number, but I think it's important for me to look at the real number. Escorts texted were 25. Didn't visit any, which is always a plus. In the past, that's what really had caused me to spiral hard. I haven't, I've gone to visit a couple and stopped myself before I actually went through with it in the last 2 months. But I haven't actually had sex with an escort for over a year. Year and a half at this point, which I do take pride in that, and I see that as like a sign of growth in a line that I have created again. And so I think if I cross that line, I would hope that I've grown in my capacity for acceptance and self-compassion to where that wouldn't cause a spiral, but realistically I think it would. So yeah, that month wasn't great. There was no way for it to be great in the last 2 weeks because the start was just so bad that it was gonna be pretty atrocious no matter what. But the last week was significantly better. And that brings me to the last week, which has been significantly better. I went on vacation with my family, and doing so helped me step away from porn, kind of get out of the cycles I was on. It just put me in a new environment and kind of shifted everything. And so it helped me. I definitely saw it as an opportunity to do a lot of journaling, get caught up mentally, do some processing, update some of the tools I use, and start rebuilding some momentum with the positive habits. And I've adjusted the habits to incorporate more exercises that help shift underlying beliefs about myself. In the past video, and in this spiral, one of the clearest things that was uncovered was just how deeply I still hate myself and how much that is impacting my self-destructive spirals. That is like the main source of fuel. I think at some level I believe I deserve to suffer because of my failure and my inability to show up for myself and others, and I hate it and hate myself because it is my own actions. And while I don't know, it's an interesting balance trying to learn how to reject the action without rejecting myself, or to really genuinely embody the belief that the action is okay, but I am. Because I think my default state for my entire life has been the action I took is not okay, which means I'm not okay, which means I suck and I hate myself. So I kind of adjusted the habits. I upgraded a couple of them because I had hit three months of success with 2 of the 4, and I barely missed the other 2. So I've shifted things around in my approach. Hasn't been perfect. When I got back home, I did, after a couple days, relapse with porn and texted escorts, and yeah. But again, relative to how deeply I was spiraling, this was a really good week. I am still struggling to build momentum with work, more specifically my more unstructured working hours, working on progress theory, and another project that I am trying to do independently. And I'm kind of just blowing through savings, which is always a little stressful, but I set myself up well enough so that Uh, I technically can't afford to. I don't want to, but it's not the end of the world. But I'm rebuilding the positive habits pretty effectively. I'm rebuilding momentum in that area, which I think is huge and very beneficial. And overcoming 6 out of 10 urges is really good in comparison to, the 8 out of 55 and 5 out of 40 something that the last months have been. Um, so yeah, I am overall. It's still very hard for me to say I am satisfied with where I currently am, because as much as I do believe this is a process and it takes time to create foundational change and to build up positive behavior and reduce negative behavior, I just dream of the day where I am past a lot of this. Having those 2 months where I was doing really well and my overall life was there was more external structure in my life which was helping me, but wasn't watching porn at all. Was working 60-hour weeks and was completing 100% of my habits every day. I'd never felt better about myself and about my future and just about like even my present experience. I was more joyful and content than I ever had been. And I feel like I just got a glimpse of what it's like to fully escape this and then jumped straight off a cliff again. And it's painful to glimpse that and then lose it. And so I definitely want to be back there, but I'm proud of the fact that I'm taking steps. It is very easy to just keep destructing and keep spiraling when you're in it and when you're extremely depressed by the fact that you're in it and you have to deal with these consequences that are entirely self-induced. And so as much as I want to be further along, I am trying to take pride in the steps I've taken. One of the major changes I'm trying to make in my identity and my kind of life ideology is trying to shift my value system to incorporate presence and acceptance and openness far more than I have. Another one of the kind of insights that came out of this, the breakup that led to the 2 month spiral and just the overall experience and me trying to analyze it and like take the lessons I could out of it, is that I've never escaped my obsession with growth and perfect growth. I thought I had. I'd started really trying to shift my thought process to focus on the process and not achievements in themselves, and to incorporate just the inherent limitations of humanity, and to stop expecting actual perfection out of myself, which I did make some progress in that area, but at my core, the foundation my identity was built on was still this idea that I am not good enough and I am not worthy of existence until I accomplish something big enough or fulfill my potential or maximize who I am. And if I grow enough, then maybe I'll feel good about myself eventually. And maybe my existence will be justified. And I can find some sort of peace. And due to that, growth was all I really cared about. Growth and purpose was the top of my value system. Everything was inconsequential in comparison to those two things. And it was being fueled by self-hatred and this belief that I am not enough and I'm not worthy of love or existence, which is a very painful and fear-based belief. And the unfortunate reality that I'm becoming more and more accepting of, I think, is I have no control over life. Like I can try, but I am a tiny, ignorant human being, and I'll never be anything more than a tiny, ignorant human being who has very little perspective in comparison to the scope of Earth, and much less in comparison to the scope of the universe. And so withholding myself happiness until I become a perfect being, which is impossible, or achieve some insanely difficult achievements, which I only have partial control of, is ridiculous. And changing my approach to life to where I still grow and I'm still focused on growth, but there's also a genuine acceptance that like I might never achieve the things I'm pushing towards, and it's important to also look for joy in the present moment and to be open to fun experiences. Essentially, overall well-being is more important than growth. Growth is a component of well-being, I think, but the way I've been living, growth has been the only component I've cared about, and it has led to continual cycles of building followed by burning down what I've built. And it's hard. It's still hard for me to let that go because I'm terrified that if I become a more present and accepting person existentially, then I'm going to become complacent and accept mediocrity. And a lifetime of complacency and mediocrity just seems so shitty to me, which I think is ironic because so far my life has been mediocrity and complacency. Which is why a change is clearly necessary. But I'm still very much struggling to, I don't know. I'm just, it's very clear to me that this is a shift, an identity shift, and a attempt to create balance that will probably take years to achieve real progress in which it's probably a lifelong struggle. Like there's no point of arrival where the pendulum is gonna be perfectly centered in the middle and there's no swinging and I have mastered well-being as much as I'd like to think that's possible. It's not. And all I can really do is just try to get better and try to refine my systems and refine myself, and I'll inch closer and closer until I die. And I'll never reach it, but I can get better, and that is enough. Because right now, the way I've been living at numerous points has made me want to die, and so it's clearly not working. So yeah, I feel like this video's been a little all over the place, but I'm happy with where I am relative to where I've been the last couple months, and honestly, over my life. I think this breakdown was very necessary, and I'm going to there's going to be very powerful growth that comes out of it, not in the ways that I expected or intended, but I think in ways that will genuinely create a lot more joy and peace in my life, which is valuable. So I'm excited to see how I can build from this and what changes that I'll be able to make from these experiences. Yeah, so that is the week. I'm going to try to get back to more consistent uploading of every week instead of every couple weeks. So hopefully next week it'll be back to a slightly shorter video that is encompassing less time. But in the meantime, anyone who actually took the time to watch this, I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving me your attention. As much as these videos are very self-centered right now, it's, at their core, it's me just talking about myself. I hope there is something that you or anyone who watches this can take away that can help create some sort of growth and momentum in their own life. Yeah, I appreciate anyone who took the time to watch. Until next week.